Attention! This is a major announcement from Ron Tyler of Emergency Management Associates. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates with Ron Tyler.
Category 5 Hurricane Milton explosively intensifies en route to Florida. Here's what to know. According to the National Hurricane Center, Milton had explosively intensified and had maximum sustained wind speeds of 175 miles per hour as of 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, qualifying it as a Category 5. Milton is forecast to move near Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula Monday and Tuesday, then cross the eastern Gulf of Mexico and approach the west coast of Florida by Wednesday. Some weakening is expected before the storm reaches the Florida Gulf Coast, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, but Milton is still likely to be a large and powerful hurricane at landfall in Florida, with life-threatening hazards at the coastline and well inland.
Ron Tyler of Emergency Management Associates will let you know further information on the path of Hurricane Milton with evacuation notifications and more. With this, Ron wants you prepared with emergency essentials if you are in the path of this hurricane, and to please follow all evacuation protocols as directed by your state and more. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and like this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates. This is a special broadcast from the Emergency Management Associates headquarters in the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina, Morganton, North Carolina. We want to bring you this emergency bulletin. Milton is now a Category 3 hurricane. Milton is a Category 3 hurricane. This just passed the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Let me give you that information right here. This just passed east of the Yucatan Peninsula just a few minutes ago. It's a Category 3 storm. As this storm goes through the Gulf of Mexico, we expect this storm to grow in intensity, to grow huge in intensity. We fully expect this storm to be a Category 5 hurricane by the time it reaches the center part of the Gulf of Mexico. I want to make an alert notice now. I'm asking everybody. I need you to tell your friends, your neighbors, your family, your extended family, the people you work with on social media, the people you work with at home or wherever you work. Tell everybody about this update. I want you to share it widely. This is probably one of the most important updates that we can share today. Okay? I want everybody to share it. This is an emergency update. Now, as of 5 p.m. today, this hurricane was just passing the northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula. Now it's past there. It's a hurricane Category 3 storm. Now I'm going to give you some information here. I want everybody to pay attention. This is urgent. This is urgent. Okay? I'm just telling you, this is urgent. I'm going to play this Fox News clip for you because each of you have contacts within the Florida area. I want everybody to pay close attention to this clip. This is important, vital information for everybody's safety.
Hurricane specialist Brian Norcross for the latest in this 5 p.m. update. Brian, I haven't had a chance to read through the discussion yet, but 905 millibars. It seems like each bulletin we get from the National Hurricane Center is more and more unbelievable, jaw-dropping.
Yeah, it's because of the satellite presentation, what they're seeing on the radar, that since the hurricane hunters were in there last, it actually looks like it has intensified, and the very modern computer forecasts that we have anticipated it would intensify, and by the way, continue to intensify. Their forecast, it takes it to 185. The big news in the new advisory is now the entire peninsula of Florida, including southeast Florida, including the Keys, including the east coast of Florida, is all under some kind of alert, either tropical storm warnings, tropical storm watches, hurricane warnings, and storm surge warnings, and we'll get to that in more detail here in just a moment. But the idea here is this super intense hurricane, 180 mile an hour winds with 905 pressure now picking up speed as it's moving to the east, and this area in here is like this long runway of very, very pristine conditions. So there's no reason in terms of the environment that would seem to keep it from continuing to be super strong or intensifying a little bit more. Some of the computer models actually lower the pressure even more into the upper 800s in kind of a Hurricane Wilma kind of situation. But through this process, likely it will try and replace its eye wall, and that will expand the winds some, weaken it some, but then we'll have an opportunity, if all that happens in this pristine area here, for it to re-intensify again. So we're likely to see fluctuations, but a super intense hurricane through tonight and tomorrow, and then things change on Wednesday as it lifts to the north. Here, looking at it close up, you just rarely see something more circular like that. When you see that, you just go, oh no, this is really one for the record books. Here we see on the radar, Brian McNulty, the University of Miami, supplies this to us at Sabaquí, Mexico, which is actually way down here. It's like down in here where the radar is coming from. So it's a good ways up. But if we look closely in here, we start to see kind of a gap right outside the eye. See that? See that kind of a wider area? That's often an indication that it's trying to start the process of developing a wider eye. So the wider eye develops, and then that wider eye shrinks, storm grows in size, storm gets strong again. That's the anticipated process here over the next day or so. But look at the new cone from the Hurricane Center. So when it says AM here, it means overnight, like 2 a.m. nominally Eastern time, 1 a.m. Central. There it is, kind of slowly moving by that north coast of Mexico. So they do have hurricane warnings, obviously, for that north coast, because they're going to get the fringe effects. And then perhaps some weakening, but maybe expanding as this eye wall replacement process goes on, but still spectacularly, stunningly strong storm through the day tomorrow. That Tuesday PM would be Tuesday afternoon tomorrow. And then it begins to lift to the north, and then things start to change. So Wednesday morning, still 160 mile an hour hurricane. Category 5 is the thought right now. And then the question is when it gets into the evening hours tomorrow. So here's tomorrow afternoon, and then here is overnight. So now the forecast is for it to be slower, making landfall in the overnight hours as 125 mile an hour category 3. But you see the process here, and what's going to happen in this time is dry air is going to try and wrap around here, and upper level winds that are very strong and are blowing across the northern Gulf. That's going to try and tear the storm apart a bit. But the thing is, through that process there, and while I'm talking to you, I'm going to get the new warnings for you ready here so we can talk about these. Through that process of that expansion, that's when we're going to have the storm spread out in size. So, okay, in this updating of everything, I'm going to show you the cone once again, and so we can get to that. Okay, so the idea is as the storm spreads in size, we have the bigger effects over a larger area, and the big thing about that is that's the storm surge. So, yeah, I can hear you. Whoever is talking to me in the control room, go ahead and tell me what you need me to do. All right, so we're standing by for Governor DeSantis. I'll toss it back to Ian as soon as we're ready for that. So the hurricane warnings now extend inland, include the Orlando area here, tropical storm warnings to the north, tropical storm warnings in the Keys, tropical storm watch, southeast Florida up to Port St. Lucie, Lake St. Lucie County, hurricane watch north of that for Indian River County, Brevard County, on up to include Duval County, because those winds are going to come in this way in northeast Florida, and then tropical storm watch on farther to the north. Now we have a storm surge warning, which you can kind of make out all the way along the west coast here. So ignore where it says storm surge watch. It's a storm surge warning now, which is just exactly as we talked about before, that it's a matter of timing. Now there is some certainty that you're going to have life-threatening storm surge in this entire zone through here. And notice now storm surge watch is in effect here on the northeastern coast of Florida and up into Georgia, it looks like. That's because the winds, as it moves out, will come back this way, pile water on this coast. So we'll get more detail on exactly the thinking there as we move forward with the water being pushed down the St. Johns River.
Hurricane specialist Brian Nor.
Okay, that's Brian Norcross from the Hurricane Warning Center from Fox News Weather. Now, folks, this is serious. Okay, I can't tell you how perturbed I am about what is going to happen. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's ready. That's why we're talking about it tonight. This is a Category 3 hurricane right now. This is actually a Category 3 hurricane just north of the Yucatan Peninsula here. It's a Category 3 storm. As this moves out into the area of the midpoint of the Gulf of Mexico, that is when we're going to see a Category 4 or a Category 5 storm right here. Okay? This is when we're going to see a Category 5 storm when it's over the center part of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, with that said, let's go back a little bit, and I want to give you an idea of what exactly is going to happen. Okay? I want to tell you what is going to happen. Now, let me take this down here. Tampa Bay is where this hurricane is going to hit. It's going to hit over in Tampa Bay, as you can see where the eye of the storm is right here on this Futurecast map. Okay, this Futurecast map is the GPS MSLP model. Okay, now if that holds true, the hurricane will either hit Tampa Bay, Florida, or just south of there. Will either hit Tampa Bay, Florida, or just south of there. That's what they are expecting. If it goes north of there, all heck is going to break loose. Why am I saying that? Because most of the people north of Tampa Bay are not expecting a major hurricane to hit again. Okay? The last hurricane, Hurricane Helene, hit in the Great Bend of Florida. Perry, Florida, Taylor County, Florida. Okay? If this hurricane hits any further north, all heck is going to break loose. Guaranteed. Because people are not ready for this. People are not ready for this. I promise you that. Now, already I was privy to a discussion, an actual telecast from Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis. 51 counties in Florida have been evacuated. I shouldn't say evacuated. 51 counties in Florida have mandatory evacuation warnings in place. They have given people the option, if their home was built after 2002, they can shelter in place. But if their house was not built after 2005, they need to evacuate. That is because of strict building codes. Most of the houses on the east coast of Florida are concrete block houses now. Now, we're going to expect to see storm surge here. We're expecting storm surge. A lot of storm surge. Okay? This is showing that. As this hurricane comes ashore, there's going to be storm surge here in this area. You see in the center of your picture here where Tampa Bay is. Okay? That area is going to see the most storm surge. Now, if that hurricane goes ashore any further south, there's going to be major storm surge, and it will be worse than what they're planning for right now. Right now, they're talking about a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. A 10 to 15 foot storm surge. As this hurricane is now set for around Tampa Bay. You can see the yellow areas further south. Those areas will have minimal storm surge, maybe a few inches to a foot high. As we go further north to the orange areas, those areas may see anywhere from 3 to 7 feet high. The red storm surge area is between 10 to 15 feet high. Okay? The blue storm surge here is minimal. The blue storm surge here is minimal because that is the area of the Great Bend where Hurricane Helene came ashore. Okay? Now let's show you another slide here about storm surge. We talked about storm surge the last time Hurricane Helene came in. Okay? What are we looking at? Look at this house here. Okay? 6 to 9 feet of storm surge. For reference, a standard Christmas tree is anywhere from 6 to 9 feet high. That is the amount of water that will flow into your house or hit your house in a great wave. And it won't be just one wave. It'll be multiple waves of water. Okay? Let's go on above that. 9 to 12 feet high. For reference, a standard basketball goal is 12 feet high. In this particular hurricane case, they're expecting anywhere from 12 to 15 feet high. Now, we are talking about nearly as high as a semi-truck trailer. We're now talking a little bit less than a semi-truck trailer in height. 15-foot high storm surge. That means anyone living along the coastal areas will have their home inundated. Major property damage. Major property damage, guys. And I kid you not. That's what we're looking at. I wanted to give you a reference, and that's a good reference. James Breck is here in the chat saying this is going to be worse than Ian. Absolutely it is. I completely agree. Now, does anybody have any questions so far? I've got a whole lot of information here for you. And I would ask all of you that have relatives or friends in Florida to notify them now so people will hear our broadcast. So people will hear and see our broadcast. It's essential that we get this information out. We're trying to save lives here. That is the only reason we're even on the air. I could talk about a lot of other things, but quite frankly, we want to save lives. That's why we're here. Only to save lives. Okay? I could talk about earthquakes. I could talk about tornadoes, which we don't have any right now. But as of Wednesday going into Thursday, we expect tornadoes all the way around the Tampa Bay area, up towards north of there and down south to the Keys. Why? Because this hurricane is going to have these outer flank winds, these outer band winds. And those outer band winds spawn great big huge thunderstorms and tornadoes. Those outer band winds just speeding on the outside the hurricane. Those have a ton of thunderstorms. Very bad, horrendous thunderstorms. And those thunderstorms spin up tornadoes. And that's exactly where we're at. Okay? James Brecka just gave us a $5 super chat. James, thank you so much. I'm going to give you an EMA sticker here. I'm also going to give you a thumbs up. I appreciate that so much. We appreciate any and all of your support here. It means a great deal. It means we can talk about all this information and we can continue to do it because you guys are supporting our program. God bless you, James, for that. Appreciate it. Now, Hurricane Heather's also put out a lot of information over on our Facebook Messenger. You want to go over there. Our Facebook Messenger talks about weather. It talks about space. It talks about anything having to do with weather. Okay? Heather is an expert. Heather is an expert. Now, I want to make sure you guys are all up to speed. If there's any small boats over in the Gulf of Mexico, get them out now. Get those small boats and craft off the water. Put them away. Put them to bed, as it were. You do not want those things to be out there right now on the water. As this hurricane steams east, the Gulf of Mexico is going to turn into a death camp. Okay? Huge wind waves. Huge wind waves. As that report said, Hurricane Milton is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Okay? Right now, Hurricane Milton is down to 900 millibars. That is one of the lowest pressures I've seen since Ian. That's one of the lowest pressure hurricanes that I've seen since Ian. And some models, some computers, some agencies have the low pressure down to 890 millibars. That's the lowest I've ever heard. The lower millibars, the lower pressure that we have at hurricanes, the more deadly they're going to be. Okay? Like I said, Milton is right now a Category 3 storm. As we go through this week, tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon, we'll see Milton as a Category 5 storm. Now, as it passes further east, I'm trying to find the slide I want to show you here. Right here. As that storm passes further east, like 1 a.m. in the morning Wednesday, we fully expect this storm to be a Category 5 or a Category 4. As of 1 a.m. Wednesday, Hurricane Milton will be passing over the warmest water of the Gulf of Mexico. Okay? It's called the Gulf Stream. The warmest water of the Gulf of Mexico starts there and it goes around the southern tip of Florida and out into the Atlantic as the Gulf Stream. As that hurricane goes over those waters, The scientists are now talking that they hope the hurricane will lose steam. They're saying that by the time it hits Tampa Bay, that it will be a Category 3/Category 4 storm. They hope it will lose steam out over those hottest waters of the Gulf. Now, we've seen hurricanes come in over into New Orleans and Texas. Over there, it's not quite that warm. And that's why those areas have had very strong hurricane winds accompanying those storms. Because those waters are still warm, but they're not hot. But 1 p.m. Wednesday, the storm will be over very warm water. As it approaches Tampa Bay, it will still have very warm water. They're hoping it will come down to at least a Category 4, if not a Category 3 storm. We're going to still see high winds, very high winds. You see the cone of uncertainty here. The cone of uncertainty also includes the outer band of the hurricane. Okay, this is where the outer bands here in the cone of uncertainty spread out. The outer band winds spread out. And as it goes over the peninsula of Florida, they hope it will come down to a Category 1 hurricane. As this storm passes over land, it will lose strength from at least a Category 3 down to a Category 1 as it passes over the peninsula of Florida. Then it will go out into the Atlantic Ocean, where it will further lose strength and maybe go down to a tropical storm or to a tropical depression as it further gets out. Now, I want to show you something else. And this is where it gets tricky. Okay? Just a second here. I just want to make sure you're ready. Okay? That's the biggest reason we're here. George Mitchell says winds are at 180 miles per hour. So now it's officially a Cat 5 hurricane. 180 miles per hour. That's big. That's strong. Okay? Now, they have also redone the Simpson-Saffir scale, which would be including a Category 6 storm. Now, they have not put out the Category 6 hurricane information yet. If this storm was to intensify to that level, they might bring out that new information. I am praying it doesn't happen, because then all bets would be off as to what the storm could do. All bets would be off as to what this storm could do. I'm just telling you. This is a very deadly storm right now. This is a very, very deadly storm right now. Does anybody have any questions right now? Because right now, I'm going to, in just a minute, I'm just going to give you some information that I would hope that you would take notes on to be able to pass on to your friends and family. Okay? I want to just take a minute and calm down here for just a minute so everybody would understand where we're at. And we can answer any questions for you. Renee Steffi says she's sorry she's late. She didn't get any notifications. Renee, you might, after this session's finished, go over to your channel and unsubscribe and then immediately resubscribe and then hit the notification bell again. That should get you reconnected to the notification system. But be advised, YouTube does not usually even stay with their own standards. Their standards say that if someone's clicked on the notification bell as clicked all, they will get notified. But YouTube's playing games as they normally do. They're playing games. George Mitchell's asking, has anybody seen Rebecca? She's been in it all today. I spoke to Rebecca earlier this morning and into this afternoon. I haven't spoken to her since. I was hoping to, but I didn't. Okay? If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to get into the meat of my discussion with you tonight. It's important. It's very, very important. Okay? Okay. Let's talk some more about Milton. We're being told now on the chat, George told us that Milton has now been declared a Category 5 storm. It wasn't supposed to be a Category 5 until about noon tomorrow. Now, this will be a catastrophic hurricane. It is going to be the worst hurricane in history. Okay? This is going to be at least a Category 5 hurricane until right before it reaches the Florida Peninsula. A very dangerous, one of the strongest storms in the Gulf of Mexico yet. When Milton hits Florida, both coasts will see a significant storm surge. The west and the east coast will see a very significant storm surge. However, the worst storm surge will be on the south side of the storm. Like I said, south of Tampa Bay. That's where it's supposed to be making landfall. They are expecting, as I said before, a 15-foot high storm surge. Not just one wave, but many waves. Water coming up 15-foot high and engulfing homes, businesses, sending cars and trucks reeling down the streets, possibly smashing into other homes or whatever. This is not going to be good. I would urge everyone, if you live in Florida, if your friends and neighbors or family live in Florida, police your yards. Pick up anything that would float or be blown around in the winds. Put it away. Put it away now. Otherwise, you may not have it. You will end up in the side of somebody's wall or hurt or kill someone else. Don't let it do that. Police your own yards and properties. Make sure everything's being put away. Now, they expect the hurricane to hit Tampa Bay, Florida about Wednesday, about 6 to 8 p.m. Thursday afternoon, after the storm passes over the peninsula, the storm will weaken to a Category 1 hurricane, or even to a post-tropical storm as it moves out into the Atlantic Ocean. The biggest thing we all have to watch out for is the heavy rainfall and the enormous flooding potential that Milton has. We're talking about $1 billion hurricane. We're talking about $1 million hurricane disaster storm if it hits anywhere near Tampa Bay. Evacuation orders have been issued by Governor DeSantis and other local officials. Okay? Those mandatory and voluntary evacuation orders have already been put in. I would urge anyone within the sound of my voice, if you are living in the area of an evacuation order, leave. Do it now. Get out of Dodge right now. If you wait till tomorrow, the closer that hurricane gets to you, the less of a chance you're going to have to leave. As the highways get crowded going northbound, all highways will be rerouted to only northbound traffic. But as those highways get packed, you're going to see bumper-to-bumper traffic, with some people losing all the gas they have, burning it out, because traffic is going slow. You need to have a full tank of gas immediately. Make sure your cars are topped off immediately. Okay? Some people are even getting gas cans, plastic and otherwise, and filling them up. Make sure you have enough fuel in your vehicles to get out of Dodge. Make sure you take your children and your pets. When Hurricane Helene hit Florida, I heard that the Cajun Navy and the United States Coast Guard were trying to locate pets and found pets that were left in their kennels treading water. Don't ever let me find you doing that. Don't ever let me find you leaving your pets chained up or closed up into a kennel. Take them with you. Take their food, take their favorite bed, their favorite play toys, your children the same thing, and get out of Dodge. Make sure you have emergency food with you. We've talked about having a food supply, having an emergency preparedness kit, and having a plan. I'm telling you right now, you better have an emergency preparedness plan ready. Okay? You better have that. Otherwise, you're up the creek without a paddle. You are. Now, please, folks, if you're under orders to evacuate, get out while the getting's good. Please listen to your authorities in your area, whether it's a mayor, the governor, or whoever it is. Listen to them. Abide by their orders. Get out of Dodge while the getting's good. Now, FEMA senior leadership remains in states impacted by Helene, and they are being sent to Florida to support operations in Florida with Hurricane Milton. The National Hurricane Center is warning that there is a risk of life-threatening storm surge, like we said a few minutes ago, and damaging winds for portions of the west coast of the Florida Peninsula beginning early Wednesday morning. Areas of heavy rainfall will affect portions of Florida throughout that day. Well, actually, some of the winds are already affecting Florida right now. There is a low pressure center over Florida right now. Now, they think it might be associated with Milton, but they're not sure. But there's still rains and winds going on right now in Florida. This is going to be an increasing concern as Milton gets closer and closer to the peninsula of Florida. There's also increasing concern for coastal flooding for the southeast, South Carolina, and Georgia coast on Thursday. Why is that? Why do you think we're going to see clouds and some winds up in the North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia? The outer bands of the hurricane, guys. The outer bands of the hurricane. Now, while we are not going to probably see any rain out of this, is because we're further north. Georgia may see it, but we won't. Georgia may see these thunderstorms and tornadoes, but up in South and North Carolina, we won't see that. But we're going to see the winds from the hurricane, the outer band winds of the hurricane. Okay? Again, counties and state governments have issued evacuation orders. If you need to evacuate, please evacuate out, not up. Evacuate out, not up. People should visit floridadisaster.org and know how to determine if they live in an evacuation zone. Again, 51 counties have emergency evacuation orders in place right now. Right this minute. Again, make sure your gas tank or your electric vehicle have been topped off. Don't be left with your car only being halfway full of either electricity or gas, because if your car breaks down, it's toast. And for the electric vehicles, your car may not any longer exist once the water hits the electric batteries of the EV cars. Your car will be toast. Okay? If you are in an evacuation zone and need evacuation assistance, please call 1-800-729-3413. Again, if you need evacuation assistance, please call 800-729-3413. Again, this is for residents that are in the evacuation areas. Okay? The state of Florida has activated the State Assistance Information Line. Residents needing information and resources can call 800-342-3557. 800-342-3557. There are English, Spanish, and Creole speakers available to answer your questions. Additional preparedness resources and state updates on Hurricane Milton can be found by visiting floridadisaster.org. Capital FLORIDA, capital DISASTER.org /updates. /updates. For live updates, go on to X. And Instagram at capital F, capital L, capital S, capital E, capital R, capital T. Florida CERT. Again, capital letters. FLSERT. FLSERT. Okay? On Facebook, you're going to find the information on Milton at FDEM. FDEM, Florida Department of Emergency Management. Now, people in Milton's path should take the forecast seriously. You need to finalize your preparations now. And you need to know they're going to get information and listen to local officials. People in Milton's path should take this seriously and finalize all your preparations and know how you're going to get information and how you're going to listen to local officials. Let's talk about evacuation routes. We've talked about evacuation routes in the past. You need to know how to read a map. Get a road map. In Florida, usually there's only highways, and like I said, all highways will be routed northbound. Okay? Be in the know about your evacuation route, how you're going to get to the highways. Okay? Act now. By learning your evacuation routes and identifying where you will stay, if you're told to evacuate, do so immediately, because your life and the life of your family may be at risk. Make sure everyone in your household knows what to do in case you need to evacuate. And make sure each one of them and yourself are very familiar with your family's emergency plan. How many times have we talked about emergency plans? I'm talking about having an emergency plan today, again. I'm hoping someone's listening to this. Having an emergency preparedness plan is very, very important. Your preparedness plans will save your lives. Okay. Now, I got a FEMA advisory that I'm asked to share with you. Please pay attention. This advisory from FEMA was given to me early this morning, October 7th, today, 2024. As federal assistance for Hurricane Helene exceeds $210 million. FEMA is preparing for dual response with Hurricane Milton strengthening as it moves through the Gulf of Mexico over to Florida. Federal support for survivors of Hurricane Helene has now surpassed $210 million. Again, I had a conversation with Speaker Johnson from the House of Representatives this past week. On Tuesday, he said that he had finagled $30 billion, $30 billion with a B, and given it to FEMA for rescue and recovery operations to help people through what they're going through. FEMA spent already $210 million. FEMA has now surpassed $210 million. That means FEMA still has a heck of a lot of money left. Reflecting that the Biden-Harris administration has somewhat of a commitment to helping the impacted communities to recover and rebuild. FEMA remains focused on coordinating comprehensive recovery efforts across the Southeast, mobilizing resources and personnel to provide immediate and long-term support to those that have been affected by these storms. Administrator Deanne Criswell continues to lead Helene response and recovery efforts in North Carolina, and she was in North Carolina today, over in the area near Asheville, with Governor Cooper from North Carolina, and other Department of Defense, the Assistant Secretary Rebecca Zimmerman, Dual Status Commander Wes Morrison from NORCOM Commander General Gregory Gillette, for a press conference this morning to provide updates on the storm damage assessments and response efforts. Administrator Criswell has directed FEMA's Deputy Director Eric Hooks to travel to North Carolina today to support response and recovery efforts while she travels to Florida. There, she's going to meet with local and state officials in Florida as she directs a federal response on the ground and prepares for the impacts of Hurricane Milton, which is expected to make landfall at the Gulf Coast of Florida on Wednesday evening as a major hurricane. Today, President Joe Biden approved an emergency declaration for Florida. Yesterday, Governor DeSantis declared Florida in a state of emergency, which allows President Biden to have an emergency declaration for Florida, authorizing FEMA to save lives and protect the health and safety of those in the storm's path. FEMA and its federal partners are leaning forward, pre-positioning resources to support local and state response efforts ahead of Hurricane Milton. What does that mean? They're pre-positioning response teams, electrical and other response teams ahead of the storm, outside of the general storm area. They have pre-positioned people outside the storm area to come in after the hurricane has passed to save lives. This is typical. This is typical, guys. I've been part of these before. I would ask everyone within the sound of my voice to cooperate with those response efforts, because only you can be part of the recovery effort. Only you will be able to shape your own life. Only you will be able to do whatever you need to do to save your life. No one else is going to do it for you, unless you lead the band. You lead the recovery. Okay? That's the only way it's going to work. If you lead the way. Again, nobody's going to do it for you. You need to be ready for whatever happens. Now, just so you know, I have problems with my internet as well here. One of my computer monitors crashed right now and I had to reboot it. Now, FEMA is already in Florida to bring their partners and state into alignment to be able to provide coverage for FEMA for the people that live in Florida for the FEMA response. They're pre-positioning support personnel on the outside areas around the hurricane. That way those responders, first responders, electrical and others, will be there after the hurricane moves through. That way they're not in harm's way. They're not in harm's way, but they're waiting on the outside of the disaster to come in after the fact to help anybody that's there. And like I said, even the electrical crews from all over the United States are already pre-positioned in Florida to assist in recovery. This includes pre-staging Florida and the region. Pre-staging Florida ahead of the hurricane. Pre-staging Florida and the entire region. Those pre-positioned people are going to support the local and state response ahead of the hurricane. We're talking law enforcement. We're talking fire department. We're talking medical personnel, both hospital and ambulance. Okay? This includes pre-staging Florida and the region, including 6 FEMA Incident Management Assistance Teams, 6 Incident Management Assistance Teams, 5 FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Teams, 5 FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Teams. Now, there are other search and rescue teams that have come online from Mississippi and Alabama and even as far west as Texas, pre-positioned to come into Florida and assist. There are 3 U.S. Coast Guard Swiftwater Rescue Teams, pre-positioned. There are 4 Healthcare System Assessment Teams, 2 Army Corps of Engineers USACE Temporary Power Teams, USACE debris experts, and Environmental Protection Agency is also there to help with environmental issues if it's a possibility that there will be problems. There are wastewater experts also. 300 ambulances and 30 high water vehicles, with ladders from the Department of Defense. FEMA officials are still actively supporting North Carolina Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and Virginia as they respond to and recover from Hurricane Helene. And those forces will not depart or divert personnel or resources from those areas just because of another storm. Those people will not divert from what they're being asked to do now. Okay? Additionally, FEMA has 2 instant staging bases with commodities including food and water. Right now, FEMA currently has 20 million meals, 40 million liters of water in the pipeline to deploy as needed to address ongoing Helene and Milton response efforts, with capacity to expand as needed. Currently, a total of nearly 900 staff are already supporting recovery efforts, based out of the Joint Field Office in Tallahassee, and operating across the designated counties for Hurricanes Helene, Debby, and Aveyah. This includes over 440 supporting Hurricane Helene recovery, over 300 supporting Hurricane Debby recovery, and over 100 supporting Hurricane Aveyah recovery. Let's talk about North, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Administrator Criswell was in North Carolina this morning in a news conference with the governor. She's going to return to North Carolina this evening as FEMA maintains its focus on Helene response and recovery. The agency is also pre-positioning resources to support local and state response efforts ahead of Hurricane Milton. FEMA is fully prepared. They are fully prepared to respond to the storm's potential impacts and has already begun staging resources and personnel to support communities in its path. The agency's capacity to manage multiple simultaneous disasters ensures that we can continue to prioritize response and recovery efforts for Helene and Milton, while also being ready to support any other event that happens, including Milton. Residents in Milton's storm projected path are urged to stay informed and prepare now. Like I said, there's 51 counties in Florida that have disaster declarations and evacuation orders in place. If you're not planning to evacuate, you need to be planning to stay in place. You need to be planning on how to live in place, shelter in place, making your home a fortress against the water, making your home a fortress, a haven for all of you and your families. FEMA is actually working alongside state and local and tribal partners to access damage and support personnel that are affected by Helene and Milton. Nearly 7,000 personnel from across the federal workforce are deployed, including personnel from FEMA. FEMA helps the public. To date, FEMA has shipped over 15.6 million meals, more than 13.9 liters of water, 157 generators, and more than 505,000 tarps to the region. Disaster survivors in certain areas of Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and Tennessee, and even Virginia can begin their recovery process by applying for federal assistance through FEMA. People with damage to your homes or your personal property. With damage to their homes and personal property, those people that live in the designated areas should apply for assistance, which may include upfront funds to help with essential items like food and water and baby formula, breastfeeding supplies, and other emergency supplies. $750 upfront funds. Now, this does not mean that it's only $750. That's the beginning. $750 upfront funds. Those are not to be paid back. There have been rumors, and I have substantiated that they're only rumors. The $750 is a one-time payment right now. People do not have to pay it back. And there's more money coming. Okay? Funds may also be available to repair storm-related damage to your homes and personal property. Excuse me. As well as assistance to find a temporary place to stay. Homeowners and renters with damage to their home or personal property from previous disasters. Whether you receive FEMA funds or not, you are still eligible to apply for and receive assistance for Helene. There are 3 ways to apply for FEMA assistance. Let's talk about it. Most people don't even know about this. Call the FEMA helpline. Call the FEMA helpline, the Federal Emergency Management Agency helpline, at 800-621-3362. The FEMA emergency hotline or helpline is 1-800-621-3362. 800-621-3362. You can also go online by visiting disasterassistance.gov. Disasterassistance.gov. You can also download and apply on the FEMA app. Support for North Carolina. The FEMA app support for North Carolina. Financial support. FEMA has already approved more than $32 million in housing and other types of assistance for over 27,000 households. Okay? More than 800 FEMA staff are on the ground, with more arriving daily. Over 1,200 urban search and rescue personnel remain in the field helping people. These teams have rescued or supported over 3,200 survivors to date. In a move to strengthen hurricane recovery efforts in western North Carolina, Biden has ordered an additional 500 active duty support troops from the nearby Fort Liberty. The nearby Fort Liberty over here in North Carolina. 500 active duty troops equipped with advanced technological assets in the area of response and recovery. This brings the total number of active duty military personnel supporting the response to 1,500 personnel. Now, while we recognize that is not enough, General Flynn said in an interview early this past week that if it was him, he would have 10,000 military personnel there right now. 10,000. Dozens of disaster survivor assistance staff are on the ground in affected areas to help survivors apply for FEMA assistance and connect them with additional state, local, and federal and voluntary agency resources. Experienced FEMA leaders from around the country are in the field to bolster response efforts. Sheltering. This is a big deal. That's why we're talking about it. Let's talk about shelters for those people that have been affected by the hurricanes. Over 1,700 people who cannot return home are staying in safe and clean lodging through FEMA's Transitional Sheltering Assistance Program. Transitional Sheltering Assistance is available for North Carolina residents displaced by Helene. Residents in declared counties who have applied for disaster assistance may be eligible to stay temporarily in a hotel or motel paid by FEMA while they work on their long-term survival housing plan. People do not need to request this assistance. FEMA will notify them of their eligibility through an automated phone call, text messaging, and or emails, depending on the method of communication that they will select at the time of application for disaster assistance. As federal assistance for Hurricane Helene exceeds $210 million, FEMA prepares for dual response with Hurricane Milton. Hurricane Milton is out there strengthening in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. We know that. As it moves toward the Gulf, through the Gulf towards Florida, be advised, everyone is watching. Everyone is watching. Now, with that said, shelter numbers continue to decline. The number of people that are actively in shelters are declining, with 22 shelters housing just under 1,000 occupants right now. Mobile feeding operations continue to help survivors in heavily impacted areas, including 3 mass feeding stations or feeding sites in Buncombe, which is Asheville, North Carolina, McDowell County and Watauga counties here in North Carolina. Power and cellular restoration. As of today, more than 86% of originally reported power outages have been restored. 86% of power outages here in North Carolina have been restored. Cellular restoration continues to improve, with less than 20% of cellular towers that are down. Less than 20% of cellular towers are down. FEMA is attempting to boost this response coordination provided by Starlink. If you remember, Elon Musk called Secretary Buttigieg from Chicago, who is the Secretary of Transportation for Biden. Why did Elon Musk call Buttigieg? Why? Because Elon Musk was told that the Secretary of Transportation had put a hit out on units with Starlink, not letting them go to where they needed to go to provide communications, not just for local emergency responders, but also for private citizens that want to get in contact with friends and relatives. So Elon Musk called Secretary Buttigieg. They had a conversation, apparently. Elon Musk said it was a very good conversation. And he was assured that his Starlink engineers would be on task doing their jobs and would not be hindered by the federal government, as had been reported. FEMA is boosting that response coordination for Starlink units to ensure that first response and the people there can communicate with each other. Let's talk about commodities. Commodity distribution, mass feeding, and hydration operations are underway in areas of western North Carolina. FEMA commodity shipments are en route to support the operations. The agency is on track to meet requested delivery timelines for meals and water. Voluntary organizations are supporting feeding operations with bulk food and water deliveries coming in via truck and aircraft. The Salvation Army has 9 mobile feeding units supporting this massive operation, and they have provided emotional and spiritual care and guidance to more than 900 people. To date, the Salvation Army has served over 12,600 meals. 9,600 drinks, 5,600 snacks. The American Red Cross is engaged in targeting and distribution of emergency supplies in low-income communities with high levels of minor or affected residential damage. The Red Cross and the Salvation Army are on post, doing their jobs. It's been my experience being out on disaster scenes such as over in Katrina that the Red Cross was right there, helping people put food in their stomachs, helping children and babies be nourished, taking care of people. I've personally seen that. Let's talk about resources. Residents can visit NCDPS.gov, NCDPS.gov/Helene, NCDPS.gov/HELENE to get information and additional assistance. Residents can also get in touch with loved ones by calling 211 here in North Carolina. 211 here in North Carolina, or visiting UnitedWayNC.org. 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 Okay? That way you can add to their list that they already have of people that are missing that you don't have any record for. They will help you. They will help you in your search and rescue efforts. As for support for Florida, as recovery efforts continue in Florida, FEMA has approved more than $87 million for over 13,000 households. FEMA residents are canvassing Florida communities affected by Helene to help survivors apply for assistance. Additionally, FEMA inspectors are visiting applicants' homes to verify disaster caused damage. Residents in need of information or resources should call the State Assistance Information Line. The State Assistance Information Line, SAIL. SAIL, the State Assistance Information Line, at 800-342-3557. The State Additional Information Line, 800-342-3557. English, Spanish, and Creole speakers are available to answer questions. Support for South Carolina. As recovery efforts continue in South Carolina, FEMA has approved over $57 million for more than 73,500 households. FEMA disaster survivor assistance teams are on the ground in neighborhoods across the affected counties, continuing to help survivors apply for FEMA assistance and connect them with additional state, local, federal, and voluntary agency resources. Residents with questions on Helene can call the state's toll-free hotline, open 24 hours a day, at 866-246-0133. Residents with questions on Helene can call the state's toll-free hotline, open 24/7, 866-246-0133. Residents who are dependent on medical equipment at home or who are without power due to Helene may be eligible for medical needs shelters. Call the state's Department of Public Health Care line at 855-472-3432. If you are dependent on medical equipment at home and you've been without power due to Helene, you may be eligible for a medical needs shelter. Call the state's Department of Health Care helpline at 855-472-3432 for more information. As federal assistance for Hurricane Helene exceeds $210 million, FEMA is preparing for a dual response with Hurricane Milton, strengthening over there in the Gulf of Mexico. You can learn more at FEMA.gov, FEMA.gov. Support for Georgia. FEMA has approved over $31 million for 39,000 households in Georgia. FEMA teams are on the ground in neighborhoods across the affected counties, helping survivors apply for FEMA assistance and connecting them with additional state, local, federal, and voluntary agency resources. Residents can find resources like shelters and feeding sites at GEMA.gov/Hurricane Helene. Residents can find resources like shelters and feeding sites at GEMA.gov/hurricane HURRICAN-HELENE. Hurricane-HELENE. Support for Georgia. Now let's talk about Virginia. Support for Virginia. To date, FEMA has approved nearly $500,000 for over 89 households in Virginia. FEMA disaster survivor assistance teams are on the ground in neighborhoods across the affected counties, helping survivors apply for FEMA assistance and connecting them with additional state, local, federal, and voluntary agency resources. Residents can find resources like shelters and feeding sites at recover-HURRICAN-Helene. Again, recover, RECOVER-HELENE VDEM, Virginia. Recover-Hurricane Helene VDEM, Virginia. Okay? Support for Tennessee. FEMA has approved over $632,000 for disaster assistance over 33 households in Tennessee. FEMA disaster survivor assistance teams are on the ground in Tennessee in neighborhoods across the affected counties, helping survivors apply for FEMA assistance and connecting them with additional state, local, and federal and voluntary agency resources. Residents in Tennessee, you can call 800-824-3463. You folks in Tennessee can find additional resources to help you if you were affected by Hurricane Helene. You can dial 800-824-3463 to report a missing person. Callers should be prepared to provide as much information as possible, including names, phone numbers, vehicle identification, and last known whereabouts. Counties continue to establish donation centers that are on an evolving list. Counties continue to offer disaster donation centers, and there is an evolving list. Visit TEMA, Tennessee Emergency Management Association website, TEMA.gov. Voluntary organizations. Voluntary organizations are also providing personnel and resources for the hardest hit areas. Like I told you earlier about the American Red Cross. Red Cross has hundreds of trained disaster workers providing comfort and operating shelters. Additionally, they are helping find loved ones through their helpline. 1-800-RED-CROSS, 1-800-RED-CROSS, 1-800-733-2767, 800-733-2767, or by going onto the Red Cross Hurricane Helene reunification page, where people can enter pertinent information about the person you're looking for. If someone is missing a child, related to this disaster or any other incident, they need to call 911 first. You need to call 911 first to report the person missing, the child missing. Then call 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-THELOST, 1-800-THE-LOST to receive assistance from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. People can receive free services like cutting fallen trees, tarping roofs, and mold mitigation with the help of many other organizations. Crisis cleanup. Call 844-965-1386. Crisis cleanup. Call 844-965-1386. The hotline is open through October 11th and can connect people with volunteers from local relief organizations, community groups, and faith-based community assistants who may be able to assist you. Does anyone have any questions? Renee Subby says Heather cannot hear you. I don't know why she can't hear me. Let me check something here. Heather, can you hear me now? My microphone is very good, and my broadcast software is up to speed. Everybody should be able to hear me. And I've been speaking basically right directly into the microphone. Arnold Smith says, imagine if folks had a simple CB radio. Imagine people had a simple CB radio to keep in touch with, or have a ham radio for high-frequency ham communications. Most of those radios are very inexpensive and can be very affordable. Those radios can be a lifesaver, literally. I know that because I have a ham radio and I've used it. Hurricane Heather says self-reliance during any disaster can mean life or death. You need to have a plan. You need to have an emergency preparedness plan, no matter whether it's for a natural disaster, a personal disaster such as the loss of income, loss of a person in your life, or family. Okay? It's mandatory to have a plan. That way, if something happens in your life, you're going to get through it. You'll have a plan already established long before that to be able to help you get through it. You won't have to think about what you're going to do because it's already written down. Okay? Hurricane Heather says it's everybody here with the air conditioner on. It's so loud. Our air conditioner finally is offering us cool air, but it's not affecting the signal here. The air conditioning unit is downstairs and the nearest vent is about 10 feet away. So it should not be affecting anyone. My buddy Sage Pup is here. Sage Pup, I love you, brother. Sage Pup has helped me, like I've told you all in the past, has helped me get through my cancer treatment. And I'm here to tell you about it, that I'm alive and well today as a result of what Sage Pup and the doctors have helped me with. I love Sage Pup. He's a great man. Does anybody have any questions for me? I've gone through a lot tonight already. That's because I prepared for it, and I wanted to make sure you have the information necessary to get through it yourselves. I need you to pass this information on to everybody you meet. All the information we have had here tonight needs to go forward. Please pass it on. Whether it's your family member or loved one in Florida or a family friend from way back when, please tell everyone about this program. Share it far and wide. Tell people how to get here. Tell them how to plug into the program. Emergency Management Associates on YouTube. Emergency Management Associates on YouTube. We're here for you. We're here for you. We always have been. I've been here on YouTube now for over 5.5 years. 5.5 years. We've been telling people about emergency assistance. We've been telling people about how to establish an emergency plan, how to establish an emergency kit, how to have water purification, how to put together an emergency kit completely, including clothes and footwear and medicine and a medical kit. We talked about it. Now is the time to make sure you have the items necessary. It doesn't have to wait for a hurricane. It doesn't have to wait for anything. You can start here tonight and write your emergency preparedness plan. Think about any kind of emergency that could affect you. Then start writing what you would do for that particular emergency. And keep going. Make a list of emergencies that you might have confront you during your life or where you live. Then put each emergency in its own category. Then start to write what you would start doing if your emergency started facing you in the face. Write out the plan. Write out your plan. I've talked about food storage as well. Whether it's cans or packages, whether it's freeze-dried food, whatever it is, make sure you use the oldest food first. And if you buy anything new, put it in the back of the older food. That way you're always using fresh food. You're always using the freshest food. That way nothing goes to waste. Okay? Any questions? I've gone through it all today. Yesterday. Oh, darn. My Burke County information doesn't come up right now, but I'll get that tomorrow. Yesterday I showed you drop-off locations that you can take emergency supplies to and drop them off at locations around North Carolina to help provide people with the assistance that they need. You can drop food or clothing or other assistance off at different locations, and then those locations, those agencies, those organizations will take what you dropped off and take it up into the mountains to get people help that they need. We talked about that. We're going to continue to talk about it. We're not going to let it go. Let's talk about supply lists. Let's talk about supply lists. Okay? I want to make sure you get this. It's important. It's really, really important. Okay, come on here. Okay, let's talk about places that you can help with supplies. Okay? List of places that will help take supplies into the areas that need from the hurricane. These are in North Carolina. We talked about some of them yesterday. Operation Airdrop. Operation Airdrop. Help Western North Carolina. HELPWESTERNNC.org. HELPWESTERNNC.org. Okay? For locations to drop supplies. Kannapolis Fire Department. Kannapolis, North Carolina Fire Department. Station 1. 300 Firehouse Drive. 300 Firehouse Drive. Kannapolis, North Carolina. 28083. Fire Station 2. 819 Richard Avenue. 819 Richard Avenue. Kannapolis, North Carolina, 28081. Kannapolis, Station 3. Kannapolis, North Carolina, 28083. West Boulevard Ministry, 2813 OLD Steel, STEELE Creek Road, 2813 Old Steel Creek Road, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28208. You can also go out to the Hickory Regional Airport, Hickory, North Carolina. The Hickory Regional Airport is at 3101 9th Avenue Drive, Northwest. 3101 9th Avenue Drive, Northwest, Hickory, North Carolina, 28601. You can go out there 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The time when the airport is open. United Cajun Navy. United Cajun Navy. 844 482 6289. 844 482 8289. That's 8289. United Cajun Navy. Walmart Supercenter. 5825 Thunder Road Northwest, Concord, North Carolina. The zip code there is 28027. Now, I want to talk about emergency supplies next. Let's talk about emergency supply lists. Chainsaws and oil. There is a growing need to chop down or cut up trees that have fallen down. Chainsaws and chainsaw oil. Generators. Propane stoves and small propane tanks. Gas cans. Gas cards. Matches. Lighter sticks. Tarps. Shovels. Hose. H-O-E-S. Hose. 30 amp drop cords. 30 amp drop cords for RV hookups. Squeegees. Mops and buckets. Trash bags. Bee wasp sprays. Bee and wasp sprays. Oil lamps and oil. Oil lamps and oil. Flashlights. Headlamps with batteries. Battery-operated lanterns. Candles. And more batteries. If you have a flashlight that has D or C cell batteries, make sure you have plenty of spare batteries. If you have a flashlight or radios that require AA or AAA batteries, make sure you have plenty of batteries backup. I went out and bought 2 more packages of batteries Saturday. Need batteries. Does anybody have any more information? Does anybody have any questions for me? I've covered a lot of information tonight. Canadian Patriot 1 Dave, my friend Dave, is up in near Ontario, Canada. He says he hasn't heard from Barry Prince yet. I haven't heard from him either. Barry Prince got sick last night, and we believe he went to the hospital. We hope he's okay. NCWQ, Becky's here tonight too. Thank you, Becky, for being here. Again, I've given you as much information as I possibly could tonight. Okay? I wanted to make sure you had it. I hope everybody took notes. I hope you all took notes. This was very important information. Anybody with any questions? Again, Hurricane Milton is over there in the western Gulf of Mexico. It is a Category 5 hurricane. It is a Category 5 hurricane with winds of over 185 miles per hour. Now, those winds may not die down for another day or so. As the hurricane gets closer to Florida, they've said that the winds should die down some. Winds should die down to a Category 4 or a Category 3 hurricane by the time it gets to Tampa Bay, Florida. If conditions change, we will advise you on what happens. We have a source from Florida that we keep very tight reins over each other, and so I know exactly what's going on. She's an emergency manager in Florida that's helped me on disaster drills literally all over the United States. She's awesome. Again, Hurricane Milton is a Category 5 hurricane right now. Okay? Hurricane Heather says she's been taking screenshots and posted them in the weather. Heather, I've got a bunch of screenshots I've had today, and I will pull them all over to you and let you put them there in the thread there. Okay? Canadian Patriot says Milton will be a big storm even if it's a Category 3 storm. Yes, it absolutely will be. It absolutely will be. It will be a very devastating hurricane. Winds of upwards of 120 miles an hour. Oh yeah, big time. Big time. Sage Pub is asking, what are the chances this storm will still change direction? There is a chance. There is that chance. We've told you in the past about the spaghetti models. I think on yesterday afternoon I showed you spaghetti models for the storm. Let me see if I can find them now. Let's see. Yes, I do have a spaghetti model here. Let's see here. In fact, this is really important, okay? I'm glad you mentioned that. These are very, very important. This is very, very important information. No, doggone it, leave me alone. Let me do this. Just a second. I was thinking of putting up a spaghetti model, but I wasn't sure that you guys would even possibly even understand what it is. But I'm sure you guys do. You guys are smart. Okay, this is one of the spaghetti models that we have, okay? As you can see, most models point to this storm hitting somewhere just north or south of Tampa Bay. Going into Tampa Bay, just north or south of there. Now, what they are not showing you as earlier models showing going up the coast, okay? Earlier models had some showing the storm going north up the coast, just like Hurricane Helene. Now there is still a chance of that. There still is a chance of that. You see that one line going up along the coastline, going up just, I believe it's just north of Tampa Bay, and going up north along the coastline of the United States. There is that possible position right now. Now there's a possibility that it could turn north completely and go up the same path as Hurricane Helene. Now you guys know how I feel about the elites. I believe there is weather modification regardless of what the Secretary of FEMA says or anybody else in government. They say they're not manipulating the weather, and we know they are. It's a fact. Yes, weather can be manipulated. I believe the storm may have been manipulated to be a Hurricane 5 today, this afternoon. Never has any hurricane made it to Hurricane 5 strength over here on the southwest part of the Gulf of Mexico. Never. Never happened. Today it has. This was a tropical depression 12 hours ago. Then it became a tropical storm. Then a Category 1 hurricane within hours after that. And within a matter of hours, it was a Category 5 hurricane now, north of the Yucatan Peninsula. At most, they were saying Hurricane Milton would be a Category 3 storm once it got over to the Yucatan Peninsula. But it's far in excess of that now. Okay? Milton is far in excess of a Category 5 hurricane. And yes, it could gain strength. It might stay the same, or as it approaches Florida, it could decrease in strength as the winds decrease. Why? Because, folks, there is a chance that there would be straight line winds going down. Straight line winds headed to the water surface. That would prevent the hurricane from gaining strength or staying the same way it is now. It would force somewhat of what should we call it? A conflagration, a dissipation of the hurricane, forcing the hurricane to become discombobulated, for lack of a better word. That's what the weather forecasters believe might happen. It's called wind shear. Wind shear. Where there's straight line winds headed to the surface. There is that possibility. We have Air Force and Navy aircraft, storm chasers, out in this storm, possibly even as we speak. They're out in this storm about 12 hours a day, flying in and around it. They're going to continue to monitor the storm until it's no longer a storm. Arnold Smith says there are different modeling from different sources, but the trough to the north flowing through the mid-latitude states determines the past trajectory. Yeah, and that's what you see here in these spaghetti models. Determining the past trajectory. Yes, it could still move north. The scientist's position on this is that no, it's not going to happen. It will go straight out into the Atlantic Ocean as we're showing here. You know the questions. That was good. Sage Pup, that was awesome. And Arnold Smith, thank you for that comment as well. Greatly appreciated. Any other questions here? Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, I'm going to end this broadcast with the same entrance video that I showed when we began this broadcast tonight. If anything big happens tonight, we'll be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Otherwise, we will be back on the air sometime between now and 6 p.m. tomorrow night. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you for being there. Also, again, please share this video everywhere. Yes, we want to grow this community. We want to grow this channel. But more than anything, we need to get this word out about this very terrible, dangerous storm. Everybody needs to see it. Please share it with everybody you see and everybody you know. I hope you have a good night and a better tomorrow. If there's anything that I can do for you, send me a note. Send me an email, send me a messenger or a text message. I would love to see it. Other than that, we will see you tomorrow night, same station, same bat place. See you then, guys. Much love.
Attention. This is a major announcement from Ron Tyler of Emergency Management Associates. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates with Ron Tyler.
Category 5 Hurricane Milton explosively intensifies en route to Florida. Here's what to know. According to the National Hurricane Center, Milton had explosively intensified and had maximum sustained wind speeds of 175 miles per hour as of 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, qualifying it as a Category 5. Milton is forecast to move near Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula Monday and Tuesday, then cross the eastern Gulf of Mexico and approach the west coast of Florida by Wednesday. Some weakening is expected before the storm reaches the Florida Gulf Coast, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, but Milton is still likely to be a large and powerful hurricane at landfall in Florida, with life-threatening hazards at the coastline and well inland.
Ron Tyler of Emergency Management Associates will let you know further information on the path of Hurricane Milton with evacuation notifications and more. With this, Ron wants you prepared with emergency essentials if you are in the path of this hurricane and to please follow all evacuation protocols as directed by your state and more. Please don't forget to subscribe, share and like this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching.